What if I told you that the most enigmatic book in history, teeming with creatures, angels, and prophecies, might hold hidden messages specifically for our time? I'm talking, of course, about the Book of Revelation. And some scholars even suggest that encrypted within its ancient lines are events that await us as early as 2025. Today, we won't blindly believe or outright dismiss anything. We'll attempt to crack this ancient code. We'll explore what these codes truly represent, where they came from, and what they might, or might not, predict. Get ready. It's going to be fascinating. So, let's start by understanding, what exactly is the Book of Revelation? It's also known as the Apocalypse of John the Divine. It's the final book of the New Testament, believed to have been written near the end of the 1st century AD. Its author, John, was exiled on the island of Patmos. Picture the times. Early Christians faced brutal persecution. Speaking openly was dangerous, so John used a language of symbols, metaphors, and visions, understandable to his contemporaries, yet utterly enigmatic to us. This was a way to convey a message of hope and impending judgment without falling into the hands of the authorities. And this is the key to unlocking all these hidden codes. So let's start with arguably the most famous and perhaps the most chilling symbol from the entire book, the number of the beast, 3 sixes, 666 Wales. This number has become a true cultural phenomenon. It appears in horror films, music, and urban legends. People fear it, searching for it in document numbers, barcodes, and even the names of politicians. For many, the mere sight of these 3 digits in a row evokes a subconscious sense of dread. But where did it actually come from? The Book of Revelation itself, in chapter 13, states, "Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. The key phrases here are calculate the number and the number of a man. The author, John, wasn't just throwing a scary number at us. He was presenting a puzzle, a kind of riddle for his contemporaries to solve. And to crack this code, we need to forget about modern technology and transport ourselves 2,000 years back in time. In the ancient world, particularly in Jewish and Greek cultures, a system called gematria was very popular. This is where each letter of the alphabet has its own numerical value. Using gematria, one could encrypt a name by turning it into a number, or conversely, find a hidden name within a number. It was an ancient form of cryptography. And so, historians and biblical scholars applying this method came to a startling conclusion. If you take the name of the Roman emperor, most hated by early Christians, Nero Caesar, and write it in Hebrew letters as Neron Caesar, and then sum the numerical values of those letters, you get, yes, precisely 666. Let's check. Neron Caesar in Hebrew, Nun 50, plus Resh 200, plus Vav 6, plus Nun 50, plus Quoth 100, plus Samek 60, plus Resh 200. The total is 666. Why Nero? For 1st century Christians, he was the embodiment of absolute evil. It was Nero who orchestrated the first Mass and incredibly brutal persecutions of Christians after the Great Fire of Rome. He turned them into living torches to illuminate his gardens and threw them to wild beasts in the arena. For the people John was writing to, Nero wasn't just a bad ruler, he was a true monster, a beast in human form. Thus, the number of the beast isn't a mystical code for the future, but a veiled political statement. It was a safe way to tell his intimidated brothers and sisters, in faith, look, the one tormenting us, Emperor Nero, he is the very beast I'm writing about. His power is the power of the beast. But here's something even more interesting, something that definitively confirms this theory. In some of the oldest manuscripts of Revelation, instead of 666, a different number appears, 616. A scribal error, you might think? No, this only proves the historian's right. If the name Nero Caesar is written not in Hebrew, but in its Latin variant, the sum of the letters comes out to precisely 616. It's likely that different scribes adapted the code for their respective audiences, but it always pointed to the same individual. It turns out that the most terrifying code of the apocalypse, which today people search for in QR codes and microchips, was actually deciphered almost immediately after it was written. It wasn't a mark of an antichrist from the future, but the name of a tyrant from the past. Let's set aside numerical codes for a moment and turn our attention to imagery. And perhaps no images in the book of Revelation are more powerful or cinematic than the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Even if you've never read the book, you've almost certainly heard of them. Let's take a closer look. The first horseman, appearing after the breaking of the first seal, rides a white horse. He holds a bow in his hand and wears a victor's crown on his head. He emerges, conquering and to conquer. Who is he? This is where centuries of debate begin and continue to rage. Some see him as a conqueror, a triumphant empire, or an ideology seeking to dominate the entire world. Others interpret him as a symbol of epidemic or plague, spreading quietly but inexorably, affecting everyone indiscriminately. There's even a theory that he is the Antichrist himself, arriving under the guise of peace and goodwill, wearing a crown but ultimately bringing destruction. Regardless, he represents something that rapidly takes hold of the world. Following him, after the breaking of the second seal, appears a horseman on a fiery red horse. He is granted power to take peace from the earth, so that people would slaughter one another, and he is given a great sword. Here, everything is much clearer. This is war, not just a local conflict, but global bloodshed, civil strife, violence that becomes the norm. The red colour of the horse represents spilled blood, and the great sword is not a symbol of protection, it's a symbol of aggression and slaughter. Sounds painfully familiar, doesn't it? One only needs to turn on the news. The third horseman rides a jet black horse. He holds a pair of scales in his hand, and a voice is heard announcing prices. 1 quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. A denarius was the average daily wage for a Roman soldier or labourer, meaning, to buy just a little bread for one's family, a person would have to work an entire day, leaving no money for anything else. This is famine, but not merely famine caused by crop failure. This is economic famine. The scales in his hand symbolise ruthless trade, inflation, where basic necessities become incredibly expensive. It's an image of monstrous social inequality, which we still witness today. And finally, the fourth horseman, the rider on a pale horse. The text uses the Greek word chloros, meaning sickly pale, greenish, the colour of a corpse. The name of this rider is Death, and Hades followed close behind him. He is given power over 1/4 of the earth, to kill by sword, famine, plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. This horseman is the culmination. He doesn't bring just one thing. He gathers the bloody harvest left by the preceding 3. He is death itself, arriving as the outcome of conquests, war, and economic collapse. Now let's pause for a moment. A global pandemic that swept across the world, major military conflicts that continue to rage, economic crises, record inflation, and the threat of famine in various parts of the globe. It's no wonder that modern interpreters, looking at the headlines of recent years, exclaim, "Here they are! All 4 are already here! They are riding now!" For them, these aren't just coincidences. This is the literal fulfillment of an ancient prophecy. And if they are already here, then according to the book, the next stage is very near. If the 4 horsemen sound terrifying, just wait. According to the book of Revelation, that's merely a warm-up act. They were the first 4 of the 7 seals that secure the mysterious scroll. What unfolds next transforms the narrative into a full-blown disaster movie script, escalating with relentless tension. Imagine a Russian nesting doll, but instead of cute wooden figures, it holds disaster upon disaster. That's precisely how this section of the apocalypse unfolds. The breaking of the 7 seals triggers one series of events. Yet, when the 7th, final seal is broken, it doesn't conclude the story. Instead, it unlocks the next level. 7 angels with 7 trumpets, and when the 7th trumpet sounds, 7 bowls of wrath will appear. Each new event is more terrifying and far-reaching than the last. It's like a countdown to a grand finale, with the stakes rising exponentially with every tick. So we've covered the first 4 seals. The Horsemen. What comes next? When the 5th seal is broken, nothing happens on earth. The action shifts to the heavens. John sees the souls of martyrs slain for their faith. They cry out to God with a single question. How long, O sovereign Lord, holy and true, until you judge those who live on the earth and avenge our blood? This is a pivotal moment. It reveals that all subsequent catastrophes are not mere chaos, but a direct response to human cruelty and injustice. The 6th seal, however, brings us back to earth with a cataclysmic roar. A global cosmic cataclysm commences. There is a mighty earthquake, the sun turns black like sackcloth, and the moon becomes red as blood. Stars fall from the sky, as a fig tree drops its unripe figs when shaken by a strong wind. The sky recedes like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island is moved from its place. People, from kings to slaves, hide in terror in caves, pleading with the mountains, "Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb." Imagine the sheer scale of this. This isn't a localized issue, this is the end of the world as we know it. And after all this, silence descends. When the 7th final seal is broken, there is silence in heaven for about half an hour. This is the calm before the storm. For it is in this quietude that John sees 7 angels, to whom are given the 7 trumpets. The countdown begins anew, but on a new, more destructive level. And as they begin to sound, the calamities become even more specific and terrifying. The first trumpet, hail and fire mixed with blood, are hurled down on the earth. 1/3 of the trees are burned up, and all green grass is consumed. The second trumpet, something like a huge mountain blazing with fire, is thrown into the sea. 1/3 of the sea turns into blood. 1/3 of the living creatures in the sea die, and 1/3 of the ships are destroyed. The third trumpet, a great star, blazing like a torch and named Wormwood, falls from the sky. It poisons 1/3 of the rivers and springs of water, and many people die. The fourth trumpet, 1/3 of the sun, moon, and stars are struck. A partial eclipse occurs, and 1/3 of the day and night become darker. It is precisely this structure, this catastrophe script, that so captivates modern interpreters. They look at the world around them and try to find correlations. Massive wildfires, the first trumpet, ocean pollution and the death of marine life. The second trumpet, an ecological disaster poisoning drinking water, like an oil spill or chemical leak. The star, Wormwood. They don't see symbols, they see a literal checklist of impending events. And if they believe they're witnessing the fulfillment of the initial items, they begin to calculate when the next ones will occur. But here's the most crucial, perhaps even mind-blowing twist in this entire story. What if we've been reading this book wrong all along? Most modern biblical scholars and historians agree that the book of Revelation isn't a roadmap to the future. Instead, it's a message encoded not for us, but specifically for first-century Christians. Those very symbols we now interpret as prophecies of the internet or a global government were to them perfectly obvious. The beast from the sea represented the Roman Empire, with its legions arriving from across the Mediterranean. The whore of Babylon was Rome itself, seen by early Christians as the epicenter of decadence and paganism. And the number 6, using Jewish gematria, where letters correspond to numerical values, perfectly spells out the name Emperor Nero, one of the most brutal persecutors of Christians. This suggests, then, that the book wasn't a prophecy reaching 2,000 years into the future, but rather a desperate message of support and hope for its contemporaries. It was telling them, hold on, yes, evil reigns now in the form of Rome, but this won't last forever. In the end, justice will prevail. It wasn't an instruction manual for the apocalypse. It was a guide for spiritual survival in dark times. So, what exactly do the hidden codes of Revelation predict for 2025? If we look at it from this viewpoint, absolutely nothing specific. They predict the same things they always have, that the world will see conflicts, diseases, injustice, and temptations. But alongside all that, there will always be hope. It seems then that the main secret of Revelation isn't about when the end will come, but how to preserve our humanity and faith while this world exists. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found it interesting to delve into this mystery, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our new investigations. Now, a question for you. Do you believe that events in the modern world are simply coincidences, or is there truly something more to ancient prophecies? Share your thoughts in the comments below. It will be very interesting to read,